We're finally on the eve of the release of Far Cry 6, and the hype train is going full steam ahead, spurred on as usual by Ubisoft's very effective marketing behemoth. But will the game live up to the high expectations of the Far Cry series? Understandably, many people are skeptical. Since Far Cry 2 and 3 revolutionized not just this series of games, but the open-world shooter genre itself, subsequent Far Cry games have made massive technical and graphical improvements, but have only provided small tweaks to the basic Far Cry formula. Far Cry 6 looks to be a continuation of this trend. It has a beautiful open world, a charismatic villain with complex motivations, a massive arsenal of weaponry, and plenty of people and things on which to unleash the firepower of that weaponry. Is it really worth buying and playing Far Cry 6 if we've already experienced all of these things in past games? Of course, we won't fully know how good of a game Far Cry 6 is until we can play it ourselves just a few days from now. But in this video, I'm going to make the case for a strong sense of cautious optimism about this next entry in the beloved series. No, Far Cry 6 will not be a dramatic break from the status quo. It won't be a revolution, it will not change video games forever. Why I am excited for Far Cry 6, and why I think you should be too, is because I think it could be the best, most complete, most fun version of the Far Cry formula we know and love. Changes in the gaming industry and criticisms over Ubisoft's tendency to reuse and recycle many aspects of game design across their different franchises means that this may be the last Far Cry game to follow the classic formula, and for now, that's alright. Far Cry 6 appears to be pulling together the best parts of this formula from the history of the series for one final time before moving on to the next chapter of open-world games. If successful, that's worth celebrating. Let's talk about some of these parts and why I think we can be optimistic about them in Far Cry 6. The first aspect of Far Cry 6 I'm excited for is the weaponry. You can't have a first-person shooter without things to shoot, but Far Cry 6 has gone above and beyond by including the largest roster of guns ever seen in a Far Cry game, including both historical and relatively modern options. The roster of guns includes everything from classics like the AK-47 and MS-16 to new additions like the AS-Val and the PPSH, as well as resolver options like the crossbow and the nail gun. In addition to the sheer number of weapons, there will also be a wide range of customization for each, allowing players to choose different ammo types, optics, muzzles, and other modifications. The resolver weapons will even have mods specific to their unique abilities, so if you really like one, you can work to upgrade it and maximize its power. Overall, the gunplay looks great in Far Cry 6, and I can't wait to start accumulating an arsenal for myself and experimenting with different class setups and playstyles. Another feature of Far Cry 6 that I'm really looking forward to is the Guerilla Camps. These lie at the heart of the Libertad Revolution, housing everything from arms dealers to dominoes minigames. These camps also include shops and buildings that can be constructed and upgraded with scavenged resources to improve your abilities, open new opportunities for open-world activities, and advance the goals of the revolution. While this is far from the first time a base building-like feature has been included in a Far Cry game, with similar systems appearing in Far Cry 4's Valley of the Yetis DLC, Far Cry Primal, and Far Cry New Dawn, the Guerilla Camps are the first of this type of system to appear in a mainline Far Cry game, and they look to be the largest and most expansive base building we have seen yet. I like this because base building serves two purposes, giving the players a non-superficial attachment to the world, and providing a sense of home within the game. Guerilla Camps are places you can come to rest, reset, and plan your next move, in addition to giving you passive bonuses and unlocking new abilities. I know I'll be spending a lot of time in these bases once Far Cry 6 releases. Opposite Libertad's Guerilla Camps are the military outposts known as FND Bases. The National Defense Forces of Yara have forcefully taken control of many strategic locations across the country, appropriating important resources to the detriment of the general populace. These locations of these outposts look varied and interesting, and unlike past games, they're no longer just generic pits of bad guys to kill, copied and pasted around the map. Each FND base controls specific resources, and therefore offers specific rewards for liberating them, meaning outposts are now strategic military targets that fit into the larger narrative of Far Cry 6, and must be considered in the progression decisions of the player. This is a possible change that I discussed in more detail in my full video on how outposts should work in Far Cry 6, so I'm really glad it made it into the final game, and I can't wait to start taking down outposts again. Another aspect of Far Cry 6 for which I'm very cautiously optimistic is the story and the guerrilla experience. Far Cry is known for its villains, and Giancarlo Esposito is almost undoubtedly the most talented actor ever casted for a leading role in a Far Cry game. I'm extremely excited to see how he brings Anton Castillo to life, but what I'm most looking forward to is the relationship between Anton and his son Diego. Without Diego, Anton is a relatively simple character who seems almost comically evil, but raising a son that he intends to be the future ruler of Yara complicates his motivations and introduces an emotional vulnerability that I'm sure will be incredibly well acted. Although Anton may have stolen most of the marketing glamour, Far Cry 6 narrative director Navid Kavari said in a recent interview with Screen Rant that in this game, he really wanted to focus on the heroes. He described the writing team's approach as, draw them in with the villain, but make them stay for the heroes. Without revealing too much personal information about myself, I can say that I've studied civil wars and interstate conflicts in an academic context, and I'm very happy about Far Cry 6's dedication to focusing on the guerrilla experience, both in narrative and gameplay. In particular, I appreciate that the Libertad movement has various factions with different goals, demographics, and attitudes. This is an accurate representation of real-world revolutionary movements, and I'm hopeful that the story will explore these divisions and differences in the course of the fight against Anton. Additionally, I'm looking forward to how the game treats important topics in civil wars, such as civilian support, territory and resource control, and the maintenance of order amidst the chaos of war. These are all important factors that determine the outcome of conflicts and revolutions, and I hope Far Cry 6 portrays them accurately and gives them the attention they deserve. So far, we've seen hints of these things in the gameplay and the first few minutes of the story, so I'm optimistic that they will be explored in more depth as the game goes on. Lastly, the guerrilla tactics available for use in the gameplay, such as bribery of corrupt government soldiers, use of guerrilla paths, hit-and-run ambushes, and intelligence gathering from locals, all looks very fun and mostly true to life. I'm hoping to get swept up in a guerrilla movement that feels genuine, believable, and intense, and the gameplay I've seen from early play sessions seems to deliver exactly that. Finally, perhaps the element of Far Cry 6 that I'm most enthusiastic for is Yara itself. Even if my optimism for the rest of the game is mistaken, even if many aspects of the game turn out to be disappointing in design, the world of Yara is huge, beautiful, and diverse, and I can't wait to explore its people and places no matter what else happens. From the hills and beaches of the starting island to the open ocean, the jungles, mountains, and farmland of the Yaran mainland, and everywhere in between, there exists a vast amount of space to explore, and so many places of interest where we can learn about Yara's past and present. I can already see myself spending dozens of hours just aimlessly wandering this country, and I hope to see some of you out there as well. Far Cry 6 looks like an incredibly well put together game that pulls together the best elements of what makes Far Cry, Far Cry. If you're looking for a revolution in game design, look elsewhere, but if you're okay with a culmination of the achievements of open world games from the past 10 years, Far Cry 6 just might fit the bill. Of course, it's too early to say that for sure until the game releases later this week, but I hope I've shown in this video that there are lots of reasons to be hopeful. There's also a lot more to Far Cry 6 that I had to leave out for the sake of time, so let me know what you're excited about in the comments, and give me some ideas for what kind of content you'd like to see from me once the game releases. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.